I thought it'd be interesting to take a stab at showing how I set up a new Mac from scratch. So this is fresh out of the box. All I've done is basically get ScreenFlow going, plug it in my monitor, and start recording. So I haven't done any setup yet, including several things that are already irritating me. And I've already seen like 3 or 4 bugs, which I failed to capture because I wasn't recording yet. So I'm sure Apple won't let us down. We'll find more as we go. So as you can see, this is just the default Catalina landing desktop. I'm going to go through and I'm just going to start my routine now of how I typically start up computers. So it all starts in system preferences. I kind of have a routine of memorizing all of the different pref panes, so I just go through all of them. So let's see. First and most importantly, I keep a lot of my stuff in iCloud Drive. The most important thing in iCloud Drive is to not optimize Mac storage. So I want the full contents of iCloud Drive synced, and part of the reason why I need that is because my dot files are there and so forth. So it's like if macOS decides like to unsync my SSH keys or something like that and put them back in the cloud, shit just breaks. So unfortunately, this has consigned me to a life now where I need to always have as much local storage or more as is in my iCloud Drive, and ideally also my photos. So this is the 4 terabyte model, which is a shame. All right, everything else should get turned on, looks fine. Overview, name, photo, email, password, shipping, nothing here, way too many devices hiding down there. Okay. Family sharing doesn't matter, nothing changes there. I have light mode on for now. I also like to change the colors up. I'm a fun guy. Default web browser, Safari, show scroll bars. Actually, I like when scrolling. That way, when I plug in a mouse or something, it doesn't show a visible sidebar. Okay, ask changes to close windows when quitting app. Yep. Allow handoff. They've actually improved several of the defaults recently. Okay, desktop and screensaver. Next on the hit list. I'm fine with the dynamic one for now. I don't really care. Folders, change every, nope. Yeah, that's fine. Screensaver, I never use. Dock, okay. Dock, I don't care about other than to hide it. So that was Command-Alt-D to go into hide mode. Double click to zoom, whatever. Animate, show indicators for open app. There was a version of macOS where they tried out like not even showing the dot underneath running applications. I'm glad that didn't last. So again, some of these defaults were real bad and then seem to have gotten better if I'm not misremembering. So mission control, don't really use much. I do use hot corners a whole lot. One is to lock the screen in the top left always. The other one is to show the desktop. That way I can just flick a wrist up to the corner and always get back to the desktop, even when my hands are otherwise full or if I'm dragging something. Okay. Siri, no one asks Siri, show me where my downloads are. In fact, I don't even think I want to listen for Hey Siri turned on. That can only cause trouble. Spotlight, same deal. There's not really any options here. Language and region. I study Japanese, and so I like to have Japanese keyboard set up. So if you'll indulge me, add that as a secondary one. No, I'm going to use English as the primary. Japanese import source, so I can type. Yep. But otherwise, we're going to keep it in Fahrenheit. Oh, also, I always use 24-hour time. Okay. Notifications. I turn off just about all of the ones that don't get me in trouble if I don't have them on. So, like, for example, I think hard about like which notifications I actually need because like calendar, I already have a calendar notification, but calendar only uses badge icon notifications for you have like a pending thing to reply to, and I get so much spam invites sent to me that number just irritates me. So I turn off the badge app icon, even though I still need it to show up in the corner there whenever I've got a pending appointment. FaceTime, that's fine. Game, no, whatever. Home, I don't like home notifications on my Mac. Mail, I don't like. I think I'll just leave the badge. So I don't need the rest. Messages, don't care about lock screen, don't care about notification preview, don't care about notification center, definitely don't play sounds. Photos, don't need them. Reminders, I use things, so I'm going to be shoveling all my reminders into things, so I don't care that I get the reminders because I'll just import it regularly. Safari, I have 0 websites that I allow ping me, and then screen time, I don't use screen time, and then wallet. If I charge my Amex or whatever, I probably don't need to know on my Mac. Okay, so turned all those off. Next up, by the way, a thing I do daily, I guess, because I don't have the courage to just turn off notifications globally, is I hold down an Alt, and then I click, oops, that was Command. Hold down Alt, and then I click to shade out the notification center. That will put you into Do Not Disturb mode until tomorrow. Okay, so notifications set. Internet accounts. Now I might have to hold off on this because I don't have 1Password yet, and also I'll need to obfuscate so you don't see my password length and all that jazz. You can see I got all this crap, sure, whatever. Game Center keeps moving around, I don't get it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Wallet and Apple Pay, yeah, probably should not show that. Touch ID, I like to use as many fingers as possible. I dock my, all right. I dock my computer to the left, so having a left index finger to be able to touch ID. Come on. I'm still bad at this. How many years later? 5 years? 6 years? I have such faith in this little graph that it's actually seeing the edges of my fingerprint and accurately displaying them to me. Yeah, use it for everything. All right. Users and groups, it's just me. I don't think there's anything I normally fix here. No login items out the gate. Yeah, I don't care about any of that. I used to have so many more features that I cared about, but then like I just got more comfortable with the defaults over time. Extensions, yeah, nothing here. Security, privacy. Whew. Okay, 5 minutes. Always use Apple Watch. File Vault is turned on. Apple ID recovery is turned off, which means I've got, my reset password stored someplace. Okay, software update. Automatically keep the Mac up to date. Seems like a good idea. I forgot to use my newly registered finger. Okay, network, the defaults are fine. Bluetooth, the defaults are fine. Sound, turn off play user interface sound effects. Also, show volume in the menu bar. I just use this so I can quickly sync to other AirPlay devices, including my AirPods when I have them connected. Output is currently going to ScreenFlow. Okay, all good. Next up, keyboard. There's definitely some important settings here. So first things first, I'm on a Microsoft Sculpt keyboard, and I need to switch Command and Alt around. So Command key is Option, and Option key is Command, and then also I bind Caps Lock to Escape. Okay, and probably the same thing for this one, just Command, or Caps Lock goes to Escape. Okay, so let's see if that fixes it. Yep, cool. So Command Tab works. Turn keyboard backlight off after 5 seconds. I don't know what the right number of seconds is, but it seems longer than that. Adjust keyboard brightness and low light. Cool. I'm gonna fuzz that out. I've got a bunch of text shortcuts that might be important. Right, but of course there's other stuff here that I want to set. All right, so I don't want to correct spelling automatically. I don't want to capitalize words. I don't want to add a period with a double space. And I do want touch bar typing suggestions because why not? There's nothing useful there otherwise. Also, I never use smart quotes. Okay, so that was easy. Shortcuts. So one of the important shortcuts is I want to be able to switch between languages quickly. You can see this, like I added a second language here, so it pops me between these different input sources. I want to switch between them using Command Option Space. So now hitting that, or Control Option Space, excuse me. So hitting that will switch between input sources. It's going through all 4 right now. I'll clean that up in a second. Screenshots, whatever. I don't think I have any other specific, yes, there is a couple. So first of all, I want to be able to say paste and match style, and just set that globally to Command-Shift-V. And then that way, anytime there is formatting in something I'm copying from one application to another, I can effectively strip that formatting and just use whatever the formatting of the source is, basically like pastes plain text for most intents and purposes. All right, input sources. I'm going to change this, so I'm just going to hiragana. That way I can hit Command or Control Option just once and twice to switch between the two languages. Caps lock mode. A lot of this stuff doesn't really matter a whole lot, except I want to increase this font size because I believe in large font sizes. Okay, cool. Dictation. I always try on dictation. I've used it on my Mac 2 times. So there's just 2 gigabytes of downloading for fun. Okay, Trackpad, next up. So look up and data detectors. It seems like Apple's actually removed places in the operating system that like show a data detector where you can firm click to fill it in. But secondary click with 2 fingers, yeah, that's fine. Tap to click, I always like this one. I don't like having to push all the way down. Also like to feel my clicks very firmly, and I have a pretty fast tracking speed. I also don't need artificially loud clicks. There we go, that's a little better. Scroll and zoom, yeah, all this stuff is fine. One thing that's really silly is I've actually, one thing I've started getting in the habit of recently is to use the claw motion to actually select apps from here, because it's fewer, I have to track fewer pixels than to go down to the dock. So I'll put like my most used apps, like maybe messages or something, like dead center, so that way I can just claw messages and launch the app real quickly. After years and years of believing that Launchpad has no purpose. Now it has one. Okay, mouse, don't have a mouse. Displays, I don't think there are any custom display settings I care about. I would get the default built-in display. True tone turned on, automatic brightness. I typically scale, I don't know if my eyes are going bad or what. Oh, cool, that took the window away. Okay, I just like stuff to look bigger. I need no more than 80 characters per line, so that's fine. Okay, all good there. Next up. Okay, sidecar, don't use. Energy saver. Prevent computer from sleeping automatically. I'm going to keep this off for now, at least while iCloud Drive is downloading, because that's going to take like a full day, and then I'm going to hit a wall. Power nap on battery power. Don't care. All good. Neat. Date and time. Set date and time automatically. Time zone. Clock. Okay, that's fine. Sharing. Okay, so I always give this a name so I can type it easily into address bars. This is a Magic keyboardy one, so I'll call it Cyril's Magic. And then that way I can just type Cyril's-magic.local. That uses Bonjour then to set up, these pseudo domains that you can access anywhere on your network. I don't need to turn any services on yet, but normally I'll turn on file sharing and screen sharing eventually. Okay, time machine, don't have set up yet, not gonna use. I actually literally just pushed this guy right off my desk accidentally as I was getting set up here. I don't know the state of my current backups. All right, so that's the quick rundown of system prefs. Okay, next up, clear out my dock. So there's not a very fantastic way to remove crap from the dock that is, as far as I can tell, less time consuming than this. You can also, you used to be able to just, okay, I'm gonna temporarily keep this thing up. Come on. Used to be able to just drag it off right away, but now they added a delay to prevent, people from accidentally removing stuff from their dock and then probably calling support and being like, hey, all my stuff is gone. I literally will often have nothing on my dock. I might have things, Safari, maybe messages. I just let it fill up with all the crap that's running. That way my dock, instead of telling me 0 useful things, tells me 1 useful thing, what's running. Also, this little dingus down here for showing like, Siri suggestions or recently run apps or suggested apps or something, I don't think that adds any value at all. It just confuses me. I think that's disableable. There we go. That actually didn't work for me for years. I don't know when it was introduced, but like whatever, some setting had gotten screwed up in my Mac. Okay, so now we're down to just the basics. There's a couple other things I like to do when I'm setting up my dock. We'll get to Finder in a second. One is, excuse me, I like to have my applications window or applications folder on the dock. And the way that I set it up is always as a fan and always date added. That way, if I just install a new thing, it shows up right there and I can just click it right away. So it makes my workflow of adding a new app faster. Same goes for downloads. So I'm always showing it as a fan, always, oh, these are the defaults now. Oh, excellent. So the downloads stack finally has good defaults. It didn't before. Okay, so this sidebar makes no sense. The recents thing makes no sense. I've never used recents. I don't understand it. Same deal with like, Google Drive is the same way, Google Docs and all that. Like I do not conceptualize of files as like things I recently touched. So that's going away. Home folder is where it's at, home directory. Don't show hard disks, don't show CDs, DVDs, and iPods. It's amazing that's still there. External disks, no. Connected servers, open folders and tabs, that's whatever. Review, it looks like tags are synced with iCloud now. That's interesting. Sidebar, okay, I don't even need recents. Don't need movies, music, pictures. Do need my home directory, and then I want to drag it to the top. I actually do use AirDrop quite a lot to locally transfer files around quickly. I also want to see my system. Searle's magic. Undo or recent tags, okay. Show all file name extensions. Show warning before changing. No, I'm fine, I trust myself. Show warning before removing from iCloud Drive. I've never unchecked this before, but I keep a lot of crap on my desktop and then I move it to non-iCloud Drive locations and it irritates me. Okay. Show warning before emptying the trash. Fine, but also I like to auto-empty the trash. Okay, so keep folders on top, on desktop. And then also I always search the current folder whenever I enter search. As opposed to the whole Mac. And the reason I do that is because whole Mac searching just does not work, and searching the current folder sometimes works, so you may as well have your default be search the current folder. Next up, I hit Command / here we go, so I can see the item count and size. And then I always use column view, which is Command 3. And so in each of these directories, I will need to be set up again. And then I don't know if this is stored in your DS store file or what in the directory, but eventually it seems like Macs learn to do this. Okay, so that's basic Finder setup. Next up, I'm going to go to the App Store. To get used to this keyboard again. Go to the App Store and, oh boy. I don't know how embarrassing this is going to be. Is it in updates? No. Purchased apps keeps moving around. Here we go. All right, Cascadia is a Safari extension for custom CSS sheets. I've been using that to hide my Twitter timeline from myself. Tot is a really cool, cute app, but it fell off my workflow, so I'm not going to reinstall it. Gifsky is Syndra's convert videos to GIFs or GIFs to videos, one of those two, probably videos to GIFs. All right, so Keynote. Some things I could uninstall. I've never used GarageBand. I like to use Mina. It's just a Google Translate website wrapper thing to make it like a system extension. Also, I use Adobe Lightroom because I've been trying to practice taking nicer pictures. But the Adobe installer and the Adobe updater are freaking terrible. The activity monitor usage on both are just awful. So with it, as is the case also with Microsoft's apps, now that they're in the App Store and they have to like behave somewhat reasonably under sandbox rules, I much prefer the Mac App Store versions, come what may. Dado is a cool little app, I'll show in a second, also by Syndra. And then Line is a Japanese messaging app. And Pixelmator Pro I use a lot too. So you can see I'm just kind of shopping through all my stuff. I use NordVPN, I use 1Password 7. That's why I was really here, I know. Basically, after a certain point, you need 1Password to do literally anything useful. I also like the app Deliveries for tracking like UPS and stuff coming to your door. MindNode too. Now we're kind of getting deeper into stuff I don't think I use very much. One Blocker for Safari. It's an ad blocker. Sorry, ad-based revenue websites. Copied is a clipboard tracker that I never used. Cathode is a funny thing that makes your terminal look silly. Photo Duplicate Cleaner is a very scary application that will delete all of your duplicates. Unarchiver will do like 7-zip files and RAR files, which macOS doesn't do out of the box. This is the old version of Remote Desktop. I will use it, but not that one. Translate tab, a lot of these are bad. Graphic used to be cool. I use Figma now for SVGs. Display menu was more useful when I was giving more presentations and had to change my resolution often. There's a 1Password over here too. It's such a mess. Shush is a great app if you need a quick like cough button for calls. Divi, that's who we're looking for. All right, so Divi's great. We'll set Divi up in a second here for window management. I also really like Daisy Disk, Star Wars KOTOR. That port was not good. All right, and this is the grand total of macOS apps that I've ever bought, apparently. All right, so we're gonna go quit out of here. We're gonna check out some setup for these things. I'm gonna open up Data. I just like it. It's a fun little app. Sure. Launch it, login. Yes. While pressing the command, it's instructing me how to get rid of it. Yeah. Or I could just drag it out. There we go. Move you over here. And so what I like about it is it just shows a calendar in one click. That's like a lot less clicking. 99% of my calendar usage is just figuring out what day it is, which is an increasingly common question to be asking myself. Okay, looks good. Get started. Thank you. Hello. Oh, well, hello. It was a belated greeting. Okay, so that app's down. We're just making all kinds of progress. Don't need to do a lot of explicit setup on these other ones. Don't need a VPN. I will be setting up things. I have to blur out some of the content though. Divi, here we go. All right, so I want that. Goodness, no, I don't need instructions. I hate these, the inconsistency of experience, I should say, is what I dislike about all of these accessibility requests, because they move around. Now they're in privacy, of course, and now I gotta go and hunt for which thing did Divi want. Okay, Divi wants full disk access? That seems excessive. Definitely needs accessibility because it needs to read from the monitor. Okay. Automation. Okay. So hopefully that's enough to get Divi working. Just to be careful, I'm going to quit Divi and relaunch Divi. Okay, so Divi's relaunched. Here's how I set Divi up. Started at login. This is a built into Windows Forever. macOS is too fancy, I guess, to have a keyboard-based way or even a window-based way to snap crap around. Global shortcut to display panel. I use Control Space for this. Enable animations, shortcuts, here we go. So the grid is what it is, and it's fine. I don't usually change this. The trick is you can have a global shortcut for like any given window arrangement, or you can have a single global shortcut to bring up this little panel and then use one more keystroke to actually like set the window setting that you want. And I find that to be far faster and more fluent than trying to remember like 7 global keyboard shortcuts to get what I need. And the basic theory that I have is I sometimes want to split apps into full screen, sometimes into thirds of a screen, sometimes into halves of a screen, always side by side, very rarely vertically. So we'll start up at doing things in thirds. I'm going to just assign these in kind of an order. with the QWERTY keyboard. So here, I don't really care to give them names. Okay. So just to illustrate then, what that's doing is I can hit, here we go. There we go. So if I create several of these, cool. So now these are split up that way, and I want to hide my dock again. And once I hide my dock, it'll take up all the available space. Why is it still making bell sounds? I thought I turned off interface. Okay, kill that. Go back up to Divi, settings. We're gonna set some more. I always set F to be full screen. And then I'm gonna get some halves. So I set this to A. And right half to D, because it's right under E. Okay, so those are halves and halves. And then the last one that I do quite a lot is a 2/3 on the right to R, so I can have a 1/3, 2/3 view. And then sometimes, because this is a slightly wide display that I'm looking at, I just want to center content so my eyes aren't traveling too far left to right. So accept X. Cool. All right, so Divi's all set up. Not going to bother showing you how to set up Word or log into Microsoft. One blocker. So I should probably go and take a look at Safari next. So Safari, you can see all my embarrassing recent viewed tabs there. This one is probably the single most custom settings that I need to mess around with of any of the stock apps. All right, so about blank is always where I start. New window, new private window. Yeah, I definitely do not want to restore tabs. I know some people like having their tabs like a certain way forever, but I need a fresh slate, a clean slate at the beginning of every day to be productive. New windows, empty page. New tabs, empty page. I don't want to be distracted by bright, shiny objects when I'm trying to get something else done. Remove history items after a month. Favorites, okay. Top 12 sites, whatever. Downloads, remove download list items, okay. Open save files, safe, scare quotes. Open pages and tabs instead of windows, yep. I never use the command 1 through 9, I only ever accidentally invoke it. Show website icons is cute, but I'll turn it on this time. Okay, autofill, fine. Passwords, fine. Search, Google, every year I try DuckDuckGo, and every year I come back to Google because I end up Googling for half my results. Safari suggestions, enable quick website search. I need to implement this for a couple of my apps too. It's a cool feature. Basically, you can just provide an indexer that hooks into that browsers can understand and provide, like little auto suggestions at the top. It's kind of neat. Preload top hit in the background. I actually dislike this one because when I'm doing local development, it means that I will start typing in a URL and then it might hit a server unexpectedly and I'll wind up with the request going through twice. It's probably good for redundancy, like making sure that in production, if something gets twice, it doesn't break. But it can be frustrating if I'm like looking at logs closely, so I turn that one off. Show favorites. No, I don't really use my favorites. Okay, so warn when visiting a fraudulent website. It's a strange checkbox. Enable JavaScript. Privacy, next up. Block all cookies. That's a bad idea. Prevent cross-tracking. Good idea. Websites. There are some things here. I don't think we're going to see any yet. The additional websites will pop up here in various categories. Okay. Okay, so here's all the extensions I've got. I'm going to turn them all on, even though they're not configured yet. And we'll set up one password, and we'll set up one blocker. Show full website address, so we don't want to hide that from ourselves and just show the domain, which is the default. Reading list, I don't use reading list. Accessibility, style sheet, unselected, proxies, show development. Okay, there we go. So now Safari's set up. So there we go. That's my blank Safari that I know and love. Next up, let's look at one blocker, because that's Safari adjacent. Whoa, those extensions, did they just change places? They probably did. All right, welcome, get started. Yeah, well, I already did that. I wish that these apps would like detect. Okay, so block ads, block regional, block custom. I guess we're done. okay. Aha, there's another setting that I want to set. Oops. Whoa, I just locked myself up. The lock screen hotkey corner is maybe a little too hot. I might need to put the timer on it. You can set a delay if you set it to sleep display instead. Okay, so there's a setting here. If I hit command comma. Command comma is the shortcut for bring up preferences. Yeah, I've probably already hit it several times. Okay, so I do not want in-app ratings and reviews. I don't care. Sorry, man. All right, quit the one blocker app. Next, I need 1Password to kind of get anything else going. So we'll go through the setup here. Downloads folder. All right, start my trial. I have 1password.com. Okay. Ooh, that was the wrong password. Oh, whoa. That's disconcerting, you know, when you type in a longish password and you, oh. All right, open 1Password and you log in. Yep. So I'll hide that stuff and then just look at the settings. So command / fills login, show icon, count, mini, suggestions, require master password every 1 week. I don't know. I restart my computer almost daily. Lock on sleep. Lock when screensaver is activated. This Mac is almost always in a house that is secured, so I'm fine with not doing this. Lock when fast user switching. Lock after. Okay. That's me. Check for compromised websites. Check for passwords. And then none of the rest of this matters. Okay, cool. So I got 1Password ready to go. All right, now I am basically in a usable state for the most part. Obviously, I could show how I set up mail and calendar, but I stick pretty close to the defaults, and I also don't want to show off my entire Gmail inbox, which I guess I haven't enabled yet because I didn't go into internet accounts because I didn't have 1Password set up. But a few things. One, don't play sounds. Never play sounds. None, no sounds. Check for messages automatically, fine. Archive or delete muted messages. Okay. These are my accounts. Send large messages with mail drop. I'll do this later. Okay. Font colors. I always bump these way up. Okay, so the message list font, if you make it much bigger, the literal display won't work right. Message font Helvetica. Is SF selectable yet? No. Seems like you'd want to be able to select the Apple font. I jammed this way up. Menlo is the default system font. I might switch this to Source Code Pro later. I like that one more. Use fix with font for plain text. Yes, of course. List preview, 2 lines. Move to archive. That way when you swipe them, they won't go to trash, they'll go to archive. Show display unrated bold. Use smart addresses. No. Oh, don't load remote content. Basically, emails with images or whatever, they very often have magic tracking pixels in them so people can detect whether or not you read or didn't read the email. If you're like me, the target of lots and lots of B2B sales emails, the last thing you want to do is give a thirsty salesperson reason to believe that you're interested in their crap. So I always uncheck this. And that way I'm only replying or only indicating that I read a thing if I actually reply to it, or if I, for whatever reason, load images on an email that shouldn't contain them. That does get you into trouble here and there. Like for some reason, Amazon's like order emails and shipping emails literally display a white screen unless you load an image, which then makes the rest of the text legible. That is frustrating. Message format, plain text, when sending a group. Use the same message format. I've started doing this recently. I used to send plain text 100% of the time, but people get frustrated because then the quoted replies stuff would get unformatted. Increase the quote. When quoting text in replies or forwards, include all of the original message text. Very important. as opposed to just whatever snippet I selected that can kind of just waste time. I just realized though there's another keyboard setting that I forgot about. So let's go back to keyboard. There we go. System preferences is actually loading individual panes again when you search it in Spotlight. In my other Mac, it just decided not to do that. All right, customize control strip. I don't know if that's something I'll be able to visually demonstrate while, here we go. They changed recently the name of this. It used to be 2 radio options, and one was like use keyboard to navigate all controls versus use keyboard to navigate, like, I guess, some controls. What you want here is you want this one so that you can tab through anything in the display, in particular dialog boxes, because out of the box, a lot of dialog boxes you must use the mouse to interact with, especially the cancel or the secondary option. Confirm, you can always hit enter, but this way you can hit tab or hit space to pick the secondary option in dialog boxes. Just helps you move faster and keep your hands to the keys. Okay, I'm trying to think of other applications that might need a little bit of setup. I try to keep things pretty basic, but I do like turning off, here it's under profile. The basic profile is fine, but I do like jamming that. See, this one uses SF mono, which is not an option in most other parts of the system. It's just so inconsistent. I know Apple's trying to protect their brand. I've never thought to increase line spacing above 1. I bet you that really screws some stuff up. Anti-alias, bold, bright colors, bold, cursor, block. I alternate here. Sometimes I like the blinking vertical bar, but the most important one is to make it stop making sounds. There we go. I really dislike sound in almost every application. Now we're gonna also set up, see what the default looks like. I wonder, maybe is this the year when I go above 18? It's called 20. So a lot of the terminal setup won't be ready until my iCloud drive syncs, because that's where I keep my dot files. And so that is a very big downside of the way that I set up a Mac, is it depends on iCloud drive being fully synced. And you can see it's just nowhere near ready yet. In fact, if I go to terminal and I try to CD into, none of my custom folders are here, shortcuts, and then go back, mobile documents. So there's one of these is like your cloud docs. There we go. What a mess. Okay. Well, nothing's here yet. So it hasn't even synced the metadata that I would need to figure out, like where my dot files are. So like typically this is like an hour-long process just to get it to the point where it starts knowing that it's downloading and showing a little dialogue, a download spinner here. And then it takes about a day to download my 300, 400 gig iCloud drive, and only once that's totally done do I feel safe actually running my scripts. So what I'm going to do is pause the screencast at that point, and then come back in a day, probably wearing different clothes, hopefully with my voice somewhat better, and we'll come back to it. And then we can start getting into like development environment setup. But this is pretty close to how I like to set up a Mac. I also like to remove Siri, so I never accidentally click Siri up there. Just staring at the US flag. What else do I typically want set up? I could show you the Japanese stuff, but that's probably less interesting to a lot of you. There's one more app that I use sparingly that I'd like to go grab. Marco.org apps. And that is his Quitter utility, because it helps me clear my focus from distracting apps. So this is my workflow, right, for installing applications. Just drag and drop. Yes, I trust you. Okay, so now Quitter is launched. Start at login, edit rules, and now I'm telling it, hey, I want mail is a great example. after 10 minutes of inactivity, just quit the mail app. And that way, when I'm command tabbing especially, I won't just be inundated with like the badge and then find myself distracted. There's other apps I might add there too, like messages. In fact, messages and things are probably the next two apps I can do now. I'm gonna clear that out. All right, keep messages forever. In fact, I don't think that the iCloud sync is turned on yet. I don't know why Aaron's the only one here. All right, a lot of things to blur out in this edit. All right, keep them forever. Play sound effects, never, ever, ever. Increase text size, sure. Yeah, don't send read receipts, do send from my phone number. And another thing too is, for both privacy and also just simplification reasons, I like to, you can just drag this sidebar to the left and then make tiny avatar heads for everybody. And one thing I like about it is it actually encourages you to go and like actually set people's photos in your contacts so you can see them at a glance. I think this is Aaron being really excited about some ramen that he and I had in Fukuoka back when travel was a thing. All right, so yeah, that's about everything I got to do for messages. Let's take a look at things, which is really core to my workflow. It's just to-do tracking app. I do not like heavy-handed tutorials. No, do not add this project. Start fresh. There's a lot of settings that I need to update in things. Move completed things to logbook daily so they don't immediately disappear. Badge count, show everything that's in inbox as well as today. Yes, group to-dos in the today list by project area. Turn on things cloud. Oh, this is, I think, a new change. It used to download, I believe it used to download in the background and then just sort of like litter your app as stuff synced. And I know things have struggled with various data sync issues over the years. And it's bit me once or twice in small ways. Honestly, it's kind of a shame because I remember early in Things development when they were first doing Cloud Sync, they wanted to do their own sync solution. They wanted to make it free. And partway into this project, iCloud Sync became a thing for third-party apps. And of course, it sucked at first, so everyone was like, see, we're so smart. Things doing its own sync. Of course, now like iCloud is very robust and CloudKit works really well, and now we've got this kind of goofy one-off login. All right, so I'll clear out a lot of this crap later. Let's change some more settings. Quick entry. So enable shortcut. So here is yet another kind of sandbox problem. This helper lets things bind a keyboard shortcut at all hours. You just need to launch it once, and then that's just a daemon process that runs. I bind it to Command Option Shift T, Command Option Control T. Calendar events, sure, that's fun. Don't need that. Reminder inbox. So this is where I was saying earlier, this lets you import stuff from your reminders manually in the inbox. It just shows up in the inbox, hey, there's some reminders here, do you want to import them? And then it'll remove them from the Apple reminders. So I still use Apple's reminders for like family stuff in the family list, but anything in the reminders list, I intend to get into things, so I just have one place. Additionally, Things has like an email forwarder. So I forward emails that I want to get into things so I can keep my inbox going. And that's just about it. I'm going to do a quick little glance at my list, see if there's anything major that I missed. I don't think there is. Of course, I could like show you how to set up music in iTunes. There's a whole bunch of other apps I like, but none of them are really core to like setting up my computer. Notes application. Yeah, that's about the size of it. All right, cool. Well, I will kick this off again when we have iCloud Drive synced and we can start looking at development stuff. getting that set up. Catch you later. Okay, what's up, internet? It is now evening, so that was a long day. It takes Apple a long time to download 200 gigabytes or so, but you can see it's almost all downloaded down here. Just a little bit to go, but I can tell that my iCloud drive is almost synced. It's just ridiculous how there's still, what, 4 or 5 years later, just almost no user interface to explain what the hell's going on with your iCloud drive. That being said, I've been relying on this quite a lot for years now, and it's not like I'm putting Git repos in an iCloud drive or anything and trying to like mix and match multiple syncing systems recursively, but it's been pretty surprisingly reliable. I haven't had any data loss. It's nice to just have it on all of my machines. I generally, like you can tell here, run pretty light and lean across all of my Macs. I switch between them pretty frequently, and that's one of the reasons why I like syncing all of my development stuff on iCloud Drive. So, it works pretty well for me. Now you might see here, I've got a folder called .files. This is where a lot of the magic happens. So we're gonna start diving into that. Another thing that you might have noticed is I've got a little doodle on my desktop. This folder here, basically at the end of every day, just to kind of like flush my mind of whatever I'm working on. I just grab whatever's on the desktop and drag it up there. And so I've been doing that for years and years now. If you actually open this folder, it takes forever. There's how many? 12,092 items. So I can walk down memory lane and look at what screenshots I was taking 7 years ago, I guess. But it's just a way to kind of keep things uncluttered. That's also up in iCloud Drive. Okay, so I keep my .files backed up as well in GitHub, although I'm really lazy about actually pushing up changes, since they're also synced via iCloud Drive to all my devices. July 13th, 2019, that is out of date. All right. Here I just said that I don't put Git repos in iCloud Drive, but this Git repo is the one exception. That one is in iCloud Drive, just realized. Got some crap I don't use, but the most important thing is I've already cloned it, of course, because it's in my iCloud Drive to that point, is this one little script right here, set up a new Mac. What that script does is it will basically just do my basic routine of creating the prompt as I like it, installing all my homebrew packages. I program Ruby and Node.js/JavaScript stuff the most, so I'll get that set up, and I can inspect it here. So you can see it's just, not a really sophisticated bash script. You can see it symlinks stuff out of the iCloud Drive inscrutable, what is this, home, library, mobile documents, cloud docs, just to something called iCloud Drive in my home. I also like to be able to access my library folder, so I just call that Library. And then after that, I've got all these symlinks that it's going to create, if they're not already created, to various .file and configurations. Turn off message of the day, handle don't show shadows and screenshots, just crap that I've normally said. There is a project there out there somewhere to kind of help you build or to provide some nicer defaults. We're doing a lot of these defaults rights stuff. I found using scripts like that, just enough weird edge cases can crop up in applications that maybe remove a UI element of their settings, but don't actually change the plist underneath, can get into a state of property entanglement, such that you'll actually reintroduce bugs by changing settings via the terminal that the developer doesn't really expect you to or doesn't test for. And so that can hamstring you. So I don't do that. I just click on radio buttons because the options, they sometimes change. Okay, then we go into the homebrews. Let's see, C tags, Node. I really recommend Node Env and RB Env and all of the other X Env. Sam Stevenson started those projects, and they've been successfully ported to a whole bunch of different languages. Jason Carnes from Testable has done a lot of work to make it easier to use for non-Ruby Ecosystems, the nice thing is for managing, if you're not familiar, these are version management tools like our RVM or NVM are analogous tools to these. They're super duper consistent, which is what I always like, and they're also quite fast. All right, you know, other stuff that I use a lot, I use wget a lot, I use tree a lot, JQ, I use FZF and ripgrep for searching and fuzzy finding. I always need Postgres installed. I like using C tags, like I mentioned. This says set shell to CSH, but I don't actually do that. Instead, I'm switching back to brew bash. I tried using ZSH, and then I ran into two things, and then I never tried again. And I don't care about shells. A lot of people care about shells. They don't matter that much to me. That I be on a version of bash that's like secure and updated is nice, so it does that. Then it updates, let's see, I'm fixed to Node 12.16.3 and Ruby 2.7.1, which as of this recording are the current ones. All right, so I'm gonna run that now. And, sorry, my camera's in the way at the top of my screen. And I'd rather lean down underneath my camera than just, you know, use my pointing device and go like this so that I can see it. All right, so this is gonna take a little while. Write a password. When they made Unix, they were thinking about screen recording Twitch streamers, and so that's why your password doesn't show little asterisks when you're typing into the terminal. A lot of people don't know that. All right, this is gonna take some amount of time. I'm impressed, actually, to be honest, that it only took 9.5 hours to download all of my iCloud drive. It used to take, when iCloud drive was still a new thing, it used to take 2-3 days to sync, and there was no progress indicator whatsoever at the time. So they're getting incrementally better. I really do hope that they increase the limit beyond 2 terabytes, especially now that they sell a lot of Macs that can conceivably fit more. And now we're just here, just hanging out. Let's see, is there any other interesting stuff? Yeah, why is my bell still going off? Come on. This Mac's pretty zippy so far. I've been pretty impressed. Okay, so interface side effects is turned off. What could be doing it? Is there a software update? Oh, this is great. Command line tools for Xcode need to be updated, which is literally being installed. Man, sometimes how is that possible? I don't understand how any of this works. What was oh yeah, how to make that bell sound go away. macOS keeps making audio bell sound. There's like a whole like generation of Google searches that stopped working when Apple changed from macOS 10 to macOS. No, not the power. Okay, so now what are we doing? Homebrew. Homebrew is run entirely by unpaid volunteers, and they are all great folks. Everyone on the Homebrew team is super neato. Let's see if I can. Team Homebrew. There we go. It's the wrong. That's got nothing to do with Homebrew SH. No. This is embarrassing. GitHub. See, they don't even have a page dedicated to themselves. Here we go. There's a way to get a list of people. Yeah, thank you all you Homebrew people. Homebrew is a pretty fascinating piece of software, especially because just it's so, it works so well despite having almost no interaction, no support from the, Eric Kanibi. I went to college with Eric. Huh, I didn't know he worked on Homebrew. Despite the fact that they like almost get nothing from Apple whatsoever. Oh, there's Mike McQuaid. That's who I was thinking of. I got to meet Mike at Ruby Kaigi last year in Fukuoka. Second time that's come up today. That's funny. Real heart of gold. His talk there was also quite good. He's from Edinburgh. I will never stop being self-conscious about how to pronounce Edinburgh, or Edinburgh, or how to drink whiskey properly, or whether to put an E in their spelling of whiskey. I just don't like peaty whiskey, gotta be honest. This is the part of installing stuff where you just got some time on your hands. But it certainly beats when I was in college. Gen 2 was the hip environment to use, and so very, very slow internet connection, downloading all of these very, very large source projects for every single thing. You want to run OpenOffice? Okay, well, here's a massive download, and then it took 12 hours to compile on my dinky little laptop. And that's what taught me that I didn't want to fight Linux on the desktop for the rest of my life. But every couple of years, I think, maybe this time, and then never. And so, as much as I complain about Apple stuff, it is the least bad option. And I tried Windows too. I just came from my Windows desktop downstairs, trying to play a game and having driver issues. I just can't quit you. I should take a vacation and have 0 devices and 0 software and just garden or something. See if I like it. All right, so we're to the part of the script now where we're installing Ruby 2.7.1. Oh, wait. So this must be as a dependency of some other thing. Wait a second. This is funny. I've never actually read this before. So Vim, which I'm installing via Homebrew, depends on Python, which depends on libyaml, which depends on Ruby. Which, of course, Apple also ships a version of Python and a version of Ruby to macOS 10 out of the box. And at the end of my script, I will be installing yet another version of Ruby 2.7.3. It's a good thing that I believe Mats and the team get paid per install. That's not true. Git GUI, bash completions, rocking it. Should I fast forward this part? I'm thinking to myself, or should I keep talking to myself into the camera? I should be looking into the camera more. I'm looking down too much. It's probably not very engaging. How do I be more engaging? I could be louder. I've done this a lot of times. Normally, if you weren't here, I would get up, go, make a coffee. I'm drinking some seltzer water. Maybe read a book. Who am I kidding? I'd be on Twitter. And I'm committed to not logging onto Twitter on this computer for at least 30 minutes. Gotta stay productive. Man, some of this output is just inscrutable if you're not really familiar with how Homebrew formula work. So many dependencies. Oh, here we go. Getting wget. So we're still pretty early in the script. Stuff to do. What's a good use of this time setup-wise? I was thinking about this. Well, there were a couple setting things that I got wrong the first time. One of them, usefully, wish it wasn't so slow to bring up pref panes. I made a mistake in that I had left this as require password after 5 minutes of display sleep. I changed this to 5 seconds because I noticed that when I went up to the upper left corner, my screen locked immediately, which is kind of punitive because then I gotta go and spend 30 seconds unlocking the screen. And so I changed the hot corner. So sorry everybody, put display to sleep as opposed to lock screen. And now that's fixed. I had another one or two things that I also found myself adjusting. Okay, there's Heroku's CLI. If you're not familiar with Heroku, it is a platform as a service. So if you've ever fought with AWS and you've been asking yourself, man, I'm fighting a lot with AWS, and you'd rather just have a whole bunch of sensible defaults to run applications on, and any of these languages, Heroku can do that for you and can save you a bunch of time and have you focus on actually building your application instead of just futzing around with DevOps crap. So yeah, that's my pitch. They are not paying me to say that, but I am a big fan of everyone who works at Heroku that I've met, and run all my apps on Heroku. So there you go. I should I should do screencasts of just me installing stuff with a lot of dead air and offer up a native content sponsor placement. So if you'd like to pitch your company, and just have me interstitially drop it when Homebrew is installing things, you can just let me know. And you can, in fact, here we go. You let me know, you go to testdouble.com, which is this great software consultancy where we, look at that, we got great clients like Betterment, GitHub, Circle CI. There's Eileen. She says that you should hire us. You click this big contact button here, and then you say, hey, I want to place sponsored content into Justin's silly YouTubes. Is that what we say? YouTubes? Into his videos about installing crap, because this is tangentially related to development. What do we install on C tags? Finding the, by the way, so C tags, if you're not familiar with what C tags are, they are dictionaries that are generated by inspecting source code, and depending on the language and so forth, of course, they boil down into a format that is understandable by various editors, especially, to navigate to the definitions of keyword tokens, identifiers. So if you got like a class or a method or function name, you can then use an editor command like in Vim control right square bracket, which might pop up in ScreenFlow there. What that'll do is jump to the definition of the thing. And so it's an it's a way to navigate around. Under some circumstances, Emacs and C tags can conflict. By default, how is this ending up with needing my password? I don't love that I don't trust the author of this script. That's why. Because you always need to provide a password whenever you change your shell, because Unix things. I don't know that because I know Unix. I know that because I Googled it once. So that, YMMV. Anyway, so back to our website. We're consultants. We are an agency of senior developers. And if your team needs great developers or needs help getting better, especially around our specialty, if we have a single one, is working in large existing systems with developers who want to improve, whether you call that refactoring or legacy rescue or software renovation, or if you're just trying to upgrade stuff, or hell, if your team's just trying to get better and get stuff done faster, we can help. Now I feel like I need some music. I need some waiting music. Can't tell, I am an anxious guy. How many minutes until I get to install Twitter? It says 18. I feel like my number might, did I say 15 minutes? I feel like I might have said 15 minutes. What are some other mina for Google Translate? I gotta distract myself with something productive. All right. Don't care. So set this up. Detect, typically from Japanese. Oh, I can type. One time I got really confused translating a bunch of documents in a batch from Javanese to English, and it went poorly. All right, next up, there we go. Preferences. I use the same shortcut for this every time. I always forget it. I struggle to remember. Command option control, command control option. The order that is always displayed is different than the order that we pronounce it in. Command option control G. I just call it smush. I smush these three in the bottom left, and then I hit the number. So smush G. There. That's a lot more pleasant. Showing the dock. I do show it in the dock so I can command tab back and forth faster. Show Facebook window. Use servers located in China. I bet you that's a box that not a lot of users check. But if you gotta. Don't automatically send to keyboard. Okay, cool. Justin is a bad programmer. See, look at that. Justin, wow, what do we program this? Although normally programmer, I think, is, I think it's normally programa with a long A, but you know what? That's neither here nor there right now. What's another utility that I usually have? One that I won't set up now, but that I do use, and I'm embarrassed to say I use it, is called Little Snitch. I have an addiction to information that is not necessarily productive for me, and Little Snitch is a firewall that blocks connections for things. And so the idea for Little Snitch, of course, is like make sure you understand the network connections that your applications are, installed applications are making, and so forth. But I use it just to have a single kill switch for things like Slack, iMessage, all my email, Twitter, 30 websites that I habitually will just go to with idle thoughts. And I keep that blocked. I try to every morning until at least noon. So I get a productive morning at least where I'm just like, my computer is useless for any purpose other than not having fun. And of course, we all think that things like Twitter and things like Instagram, those are fun because they're like, not like they're expressively not work, right? But of course we like just leave them feeling more miserable than we came in, and more demotivated instead of renewed to go back to work. So they managed to simultaneously sap our energy and distract us and make work feel less engaging. So that's my ad for Slack. Sponsor slots are available. I'm glad it's the night now. I should only do these at night, so you can hear the true. All right, so I'm gonna actually download that free tool. I'm gonna download this and just get this started. In order to actually install it, I know it requires kernel extensions. So Little Snitch may not be long for this world because I have a feeling like kernel extensions are just not going to be a thing that Apple puts up with for much longer. Yeah, I know that the installer won't finish. This movie right here was this morning's video. 2.6 gig. Ooh, that face. Really, face for radio. 2.6 gigs. Yeah. 1080, 30 frames a second, 45 minutes, 2.6 gigs. Huh. Okay, so we're just, don't worry everyone, we're just installing Ruby for the third time. Same version, 2.7.1. Node is already installed. Node is, if you've ever noticed, if you've installed Node and Ruby, Node will install much faster because it is distributed as an executable, pre-compiled. So you see this is installing Darwin x64. This is a pre-compiled executable. Ruby is typically distributed and then compiled onto systems, at least on Mac. I assume most Linux distributions too. I somehow doubt Windows. And I don't know why that is, other than to guess that it has something to do with linking against OpenSSL correctly so that SSL will work successfully. But that might just be FUD. There might be no good reason for why RBENV does not install binaries. Leave your comments and how you feel about that in the comments, which I will probably disable because I usually disable the comments. Speaking of comments, I mentioned this, I showed this one blocker, ad blocker extension. Honestly, the biggest reason I use it is because it blocks social widgets and it also blocks comments. And so whenever I go to a website that normally would have comments, I just don't see it. So Hacker News is hilarious. All right. Other stuff. I had a whole list and I took it downstairs. What was I thinking? Other things I do to be a developer. I use Vim. I don't use... Oh, there we go. Cool. See, that was nice and easy. I should have put time in front of that command. 25 minus 2 minutes. Guess that was a while. Thanks for hanging out. You can see my prompt still looks ridiculous. Command K to clear it. So I'm just going to open a new shell so it sources everything correctly. There we go. That's my prompt. That's what I like to see. So a lot of stuff happened. I'm going to be in my home directory now, of course. And now if I ls here, I've got iCloud Drive and Library. I can open up Finder and inspect it. This is typically the way I interact with Finder, as I'm usually in my terminal, and I'll just type open dot to open the current directory in Finder, so I can kind of like look around. I'm a very visual fellow. Okay, so iCloud Drive, got all my iCloud Drive stuff there. Great. Next up, let's get a GitHub repo working. So I'll pick a GitHub repo of mine that isn't too complicated, like doesn't require a whole lot of additional dependencies. Let's pick standard. So we're gonna go and get GitHub test double standard. Standard is a decorator over Rubocop, which is a linter for the Ruby language. And this just disables your ability to custom configure it. I want to clone it. I always clone via SSH. Okay. Maybe this will change when I click sign in. All right. Searls. If you got TOTP codes hooked up into 1Password, they will just automatically hit your buffer after autofilling. It's quite nice. All right, cool. Now this is SSH keys. So of course, when I copy this, it's not going to work, right? Because I'm not going to have this set up. So I need to go through the dance of setting up an SSH key on GitHub. You can command drag most things off most toolbars, by the way. GitHub set up Mac SSH key. So this is another dance that I do on each of my machines. I don't reuse SSH keys across machines, but I do reuse some of the configuration. So for example, I probably already have an SSH directory, and all that's in it is config. And the reason for that is that to get SSH working in recent versions of macOS, you need these little doodly dads to say, hey, yes, please access the keychain when SSH agent is running, which will allow you to actually not have to sign your passphrase every single time. Okay. No, this is too soon. Generate SSH key. SSH key. This used to be a lot easier. Here, okay. Mac. There we go. I'm on a Mac. Copy up until the point where it's the email part. Just enter for default. Passphrase, you always want to put a passphrase. I remember that because somebody yelled at me when I was in college for not using a passphrase and an SSH key. And that's all I remember from that. So I just do it now. I'm sure, surely it sounds good to have a passphrase. All right, start SSH agent. Most of my accounts have passwords. All right, so this is the SSH config crap. Yes, that's already set. And then finally, add -k to register that. And then of course, it needs to remember your passphrase, which we have because it's good to have one. And then add it to your account. And this is where, yes, PB copy. So PB copy, PB paste are awesome. I love them, love them. So if I like want to take anything, you can just pipe it to PB copy and then it's in your paste buffer. Just for an example, that configuration file, for example. So if I cat, cool. So I actually accidentally invoked my fuzzy finder config. I'll show you that in a second, which means, of course, now it's going to try to fuzzy find from my home directory, which, of course, in Catalina is going to prompt access for terminal to be able to read my photos folder, and then I'm sure my downloads folder. So documents, there we go. Oh, this is terrible. Oh. Oh, there we go. That's there we go. The grand finale. That was by hitting Control T. So this is a real cool utility called FZF, which was part of my setup script. Command line fuzzy finder. I primarily use this in Vim so that I can have let's see, leader TT to open up a new tab. Oh, there we go. Got access reminders. So if I'm opening up SSH config, which of course just gives me nonsense, .ssh config is a little overwhelmed right now. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I can find it. Quit out of that. So what I was trying to say was I could just cat, look at computer, so easy. That was only mildly overwhelming. I could type pb copy, and then, I don't know, in a form or something, you can see that there are pastes. Just realized I didn't have any scratches available. Okay, so that's not what I'm doing. I'm very easily distracted. Here we go. pb copy. GitHub. One thing that's always driven me a little bit up a wall about this particular page, I love this page because it's always right and it's useful, is like, now just like give me a link to the settings. Like it's the same URL for everybody. Just give a hyperlink. I might tweet about that. Have somebody help me. I'm so sorry to everyone I've ever tweeted a complaint to in hopes that it would elicit change. Cyril's magic. Cyril's after dark. All right, cool. Never used. All right, so now we have a key registered. We've got a key on the system. The public key is, of course, up at GitHub. That means that we'll be able to clone stuff. I use the same foldering scheme, directory scheme, for all of my repos, and because I use GitHub for pretty much everything, it goes code directory, and then the organization name, and then the project name, and then that way I can always know exactly where, like, oh, this is the official fork of Rails. I'll know that it's in code Rails, and then I can, relative path from thing to thing very, very quickly. So to adjudicate all this for me, I have a little stupid script called Glone that's in the bin directory that travels with me. Like git unpull, which I realized last week was a thing I wrote that's stupid. Glone, test double standard. Thanks for spending some time with me. Yes, I trust GitHub. All right, and then the last thing it does, hey, look, there's our old friend, pb copy. So Command V, and now we're in standard. So next thing to happen is, of course I've got Ruby. I want to make sure I got the right Ruby. Good. So part of my script, it installed this Ruby using rbenv, and then it globally set it as my global Ruby, which is great. That means I've got a version of bundler. Oops, bundle v. Okay, so that's probably the one that standard's bundled with, now that bundler cares what version a bundle was bundled with. But if the bundle doesn't bundle, who? By the seashore. Okay, that was quick. See if the test pass. Look at that, I'm up and running. I'm running some Rubies. All right, great. While I'm at it, I'll do something harder now. I got a basic Ruby app going. I'm going to get a basic Rails app going, which is Kame-Same, my Japanese learning tool. All right, so now I'm there. This is not going to just be up and running because there's like a million steps. A million setup steps. Oh. Well, surely this is just wrong. Well, first of all, it's not a Rails 5.2 app anymore. There's no way that that's correct. You know why it's not correct? Because I started writing a script, which made me stop caring about the README. Script setup. So there's a, speaking of GitHub, one script to rule them all. Hey, look, there's our buddy Mike McQuaid again. See, just small world. Those people helping people. All right, script bootstrap, script setup. So this is used to get project in an initial state. Bootstrap is fulfilling dependency, like getting Ruby and all that, and then update server. And so this is just a naming convention for if you, in your repo, always have scripts with this name. It facilitates companies like GitHub to have a lot of little repos. And that can be handy so that everyone knows they don't have to bug somebody or check a wiki or write a README. Just if the scripts work, they work, and if they don't, you can send a pull request. So here's my script setup. Bundle, yarn, already bundled, so already bundled, still installing. So we will wait for that command to finish, and then we'll run this again. It will yarn install because yarn is the chosen bundling thing of front-end assets by Rails core. I'm not sure I love that. Yarn 2, by the way, if anyone knows what's going on with Yarn 2, because apparently, like, it's a pretty clean break from Yarn 1, but, like, Yarn 1 was already pretty good, but, like, it's also not supposed to be installed globally, but also every time I try to install it the way they tell me to install it, it doesn't work. So that's confusing. Let's see. Wanikani is the API key that I need in order to access their API. That's, boy, is it getting late? 10:11. Persist JM dict. This will download a Japanese dictionary and then persist list, which I don't think that script will work. But this will start to exercise some of the fun stuff. All right, so script setup, right? So run that. That should help verify that some of this other stuff seems to be working. Okay, cool. So yarn executes correctly. That's a good step. Yarn was also another thing in our setup script. While that's going, trying to think of a Node.js-y kind of project that I can run up against. So over in this command terminal, I'm going to pull down our Testable.js project. Testable.js is a mocking library for JavaScript. So if you've ever heard of sign-on, Testable.js is a response to sign-on that I think is very good. Speaking of conventions, npm it is how I say it. If you run npm it runs install and then test. And so from a general project hygiene perspective, brief aside, I really wish that Ruby had a sort of a default script running mechanism built in at the project level, because Bundler sort of sucked all the oxygen out of the room when it came to, like, project management comprehension tools. Other languages have these, like Maven or Gradle in Java, Mix and Elixir. God, I hope that's what Mix does. I've never actually used Elixir. So npm, of course, we can run scripts with. This will install dependencies and then also run our tests. So again, end of sidebar, back to talking about npm it. When I pull down a node module, the very first thing I do is I run npm it, and if it doesn't work, I get sad. So this is my fault if it doesn't work. Although a fellow named Gil recently added an awesome new feature, and so if it doesn't work, it's Gil's fault. That's why it's important to have multiple open source maintainers, because then culpability is shared when things go wrong. Hey, look, tests are passing. Testable.js uses a teeny test, which is our Node.js test runner. And then it also, in order to be maximally thorough, you can see that has 6, 7 different sample projects using other tools like Jest, Ava, a general Webpack one, a Node.js one. And then it parallelly runs it, but something went wrong. Something went wrong indeed. Aha! I was gonna tell you. So one of the things that I try to do in life is not install Google Chrome. And I always end up having to install Google Chrome. And I always tell myself, next time, I'm not gonna install Google Chrome. But here I am already installing Google Chrome. I'll be honest, my last Mac OS install was 2 months ago, and I made it almost that full 2 months without downloading Chrome, which Plus side, I didn't have to deal with Chrome. My battery life was great. Downside, it must mean I also never ran the tests for one of our most important libraries, even though I cut probably the biggest release in 2 years. So that is an indictment on me. I'm very sorry. Not the best maintainer in the world. I emit stuff. I emit words out of my mouth. I emit tweets. I emit code almost manically, and then I get out over my skis. I say things that are more provocative than I can handle. So then I don't have any follow through. I don't have any follow up, and so already my brain is like, "What have I said on this camera thing? Like, is any of this going to come back to haunt me?" And the answer is either yes or no one's watching. And so I think that's why I keep doing this, is I just have a big void in my soul, which I'm happy to tell you about anytime. If you go to testable.com and click contact and say, tell me about the void in Justin's soul. Do not do that, because Todd also gets these emails and he will be not impressed with me. Also, we get a ton of spam. You'd be surprised. Okay, so Chrome is installed. And that's how to install Google Chrome. God, I'm the worst. All right, do not install it. Do I want to? Now this, like when Apple asks me this kind of stuff, I'm like, yeah, this diagnostic information is certainly fine, but I don't trust Google. I don't want to make, I never sign into Google. I just assume that when this happens, bad things are quick behind, close behind. All right, we're gonna run that again. While that's going, I'm gonna check our other setup. Ooh, look at that. Nathan Walker. He works at 8th Light. He's a friend of mine who I first met in Japan in 2005. Grew up near where I did in Michigan. Nathan Walker has been helping me out with Kami-sama, and he sped up this import. This is a really, really impressive thing for Ruby to do, in that we have this awesome gem called Nokogiri, started by Aaron Patterson, and of course maintained lovingly by lots of other people. And XML parsing, like XMLlib2 is the underlying C library for parsing and doing all this sort of XML stuff, which of course is not exactly a going concern for most folks these days, because XML's fallen out of favor. But XML processing was big business in the early and mid-aughts. And coming from Java land, where you had multiple large vendors just pitching and selling and maintaining these massive XML libraries, where you'd have entire large studios, large enterprises, just doing these really, really big XML parsing projects, and you had different strategies for parsing XML, like Sax and Stacks, and straight up DOM manipulation. One thing that Nokogiri doesn't do super great is Sax parsing of XML, and I ran into that headlong with this gem called AWL, which is what is running right now. So if you're ever interested in understanding how to parse XML incrementally in Ruby without necessarily loading the entire DOM into RAM, which is slow when your dictionary is 200 megabytes like this one is, basically you just sit there waiting for 45 seconds and then you'd still be consuming, gigabytes of RAM. What this does instead is it streams the XML bit by bit until as things open, it streams those to you've registered callbacks that can handle certain types of elements and certain types of attributes, and then you store only the bits that you want, so you're not loading up the whole DOM, and then you can flush and release those things from memory, making garbage collectible as soon as you're done handling them. And so it's great for things like batch processes, like this one, where I'm importing 180,000 items. Item 182 isn't really affected by 181, so I can discard it as soon as I've persisted it. All right, now I'm upserting some lists. These are just kind of curricula to work through if you're studying Japanese, and that is a slow one. So we're gonna call time there. It's a good sign. Hey, another time, our parallel test of 6 different projects all passed. So I'm fairly confident now that that my dev environment works. Haven't spent any time writing any code, but my Vim setup looks like this. Ooh, please judge me. Here's a great example. So I mentioned the IE MIT stuff, right? Like I put a lot of open source out there. This is just nasty, right? This is me shell scripting inside of a JSON file. So I wrote this module called Scripty, what feels like forever ago. It's not even the most popular Scripty. It's got 700 stars. This is Oh gosh, man, this is just me calling me out. No one should be shell scripting inside a JSON file. Basically what it does is it gives you a way to break your script out into actual files. And I wrote that library so that I could clean up this package JSON. That was like 3 years ago. It never happened. So good libraries are extractions. You put them to work once you release them, you're already using them. You don't build the thing and then hope to come back later and build it. In fact, there's another thing here, run s, which I think purportedly kind of does the same thing. This runs multiple other npm commands. This one in sequence. I think npm run p runs them parallel. Is how we're running out these examples. Okay, so anyway, that's Vim. If you want to learn about Vim, find another screencast. All right, so I've taken up enough time. It's 45 minutes of Mac crap and 45 minutes of developer setup crap. I will update that Git repo if you want to check this out yourself and imitate it, fork it, play with it. Yeah, thanks for your time. I'm excited to have another Mac set up and ready to go. So I guess now I know the answer is it takes me about an hour and a half if I'm talking to a black piece of glass in front of me actively. And it probably takes a little bit less than that if I am just staring into the void. All right, well, speaking on that note, goodbye.